Now, before you ask, this is not one of my holiday pictures. Trying to catch the right wave or something like that. You wouldn't find me trying to do that. But what is interesting is that this is exactly what many of our customers who are all trying to become real-time enterprises are trying to do. They're trying to catch the right wave, or catch the right moment, the opportunity. And when we talk about real-time enterprises, all of you, all of us, are almost continuously in contact with real-time enterprises. If you order something from Amazon, it gets delivered to you in hours. If you need a taxi, Uber will get it to you in minutes. Although you might wonder if you want to get in these days, obviously. And if you need some cloud services, Azure will deliver it to you in seconds. And so you see some of these companies who have really made that jump, who have really become real-time enterprises, and yet you see others that are struggling to make that jump. And why is that? In all reality, it all comes down to how these companies do what they do. How their processes are being run. And in the rest of this presentation, I'll spend some time on trying to show you how Verizon is actually, helping our customers to actually make that leap, and maybe also by showing something which Juan Carlos talked about, how we are, trying to make our hands dirty in pushing some things forward. Now, as Mark said, I'm Peter Konings. At Verizon, I am responsible for product development for EMEA, also for the Americas, so Latin America and Canada. Some folks in the US thought that was a great combination. We're going to be focusing in on that topic for the rest of my slides. Now, if you look at there was a recent study by Ovum, and in that study it said that about 96% of all telecom executives of large carriers for the next 18 months saw it as their main aim to create a personalized customer experience for their end customers. That personalized customer experience. Now, you could ask yourself, how does that actually jive with the reality that although we have, as Juan Carlos also already said, for many years we have been pushing automation, but from an end customer experience perspective, the performance which we see in delivering services is probably the same as what happened about 20 years ago. Now, 20 years ago, just think about that, 1998, 20 years ago. In 1998, Amazon, Amazon.com, around at that time already, went into maintenance, standard maintenance, stayed offline for 10 hours. Imagine Amazon.com being offline for 10 hours these days. AOL, announced in '98 that they were going to be buying, the most popular web browser of the time, which was Netscape. And Google hired its first employee. So that all happened 20 years ago. So, almost the dark ages, as you can see. So how do we move from that into really creating this improved personal customer experience? And that's of course where technology has now come to help us. where we talk about zero-touch provision. We talk about automation, obviously enabled by technologies such as software-defined networking and network function virtualization. And then, of course, as an operator, you look at that and you try to figure out, okay, what are we going to be doing? Huh? And we believe at Verizon there's really three ways forward. Huh? You can look at it from a product, a platform, or an integrated ecosystem perspective. Huh? If you look at it from a product perspective, that is probably your fastest route to market. You pick up maybe one specific a solution, maybe an SD1 or whatever solution. You just wrap a solution around a technology, a product, bring that to market, get some automation going, very specific to that solution. Maybe it's a limited offering. Maybe the value you offer as an operator is also quite limited. What is the difference between that and delivering a managed router, which we've been doing for many years? But it gets you to market quickly, and you can actually learn from that. Then you've got the approach of the platform, so where you actually make the decision. You say, you know what, if I look into this entire virtualized services world, I know what is best, so I'll pick a few technologies, maybe start to provide a level of automation, a level of orchestration management there, and bring that to market, which, it's fine, you learn from it as well. It may be a dangerous situation because it pre-assumes that you understand exactly what your customers want. And I can tell you that, with agile enterprises, with real-time enterprises, their requirements tend to change quite rapidly. And then there's, the concept of the integrated ecosystem, where no longer it's about the technology or the product or about the operator making choices. It's really about the customer being in control. The customer will actually decide the direction we want to move into, and we provide the framework, and actually enable him to deliver upon his own requirements. Now, the reality is probably that any operator is probably going to be present across all of these, which is probably fine. Huh? But we at Verizon, we actually believe that the direction to go is clearly that integrated ecosystem, and because that is truly going to be getting us that automation, ZTP, etc. But then, is that enough? Huh? Because one thing, and definitely we've seen it also at Verizon, is that you tend to get so focused on the zero-touch provisioning, on the automation, while focusing in on some of the virtualized services we're trying to deliver to our customers, that sometimes we forget that a customer doesn't look at a component, the customer looks at the end-to-end. And what's the use in saying, what, I can deliver whatever virtualized service in minutes, if your underlying network still takes weeks or months to get delivered. So we do believe we need to look at the entire end-to-end perspective, and that's where we actually come to an announcement or a demo we did last week in London between us and our partners at Colt. Where for the first time we actually showed a cross-carrier zero-touch provisioning and carrier automation demo across live networks. So what we did together with Colt is that we set up two standard E-line circuits between the Verizon Innovation Center in London and Colt House, also in London. We interconnected in an Equinix data center in Slough, the northeast of London. So all of that standard components. We ran high quality video across both circuits. And then you basically, you obviously saw, we then basically use a traffic generator to negatively impact the quality, so you saw the quality go down. The original circuit was configured at 10 meg. We then used the Verizon portal to make a change, obviously on our side, and then through a standard LSO-based API, we pushed out that request into the Colt network. And then on average, after about 10 minutes, you see, the full provisioning happens. You see the circuit, you see the video coming back to normal. Then we did the reverse. So Colt did exactly the same into the Verizon network. Both demonstrations worked flawlessly. So you might say, great, what? Another demo, another proof of concept. We've heard about that. So there's a few things which are different here. As I already mentioned, it is for the first time, actually happening on the core networks, on the live networks. So this is not being done as a proof of concept somewhere in a lab. It was also bi-directional. So we were consuming Colt's API. Colt was consuming our API, and also both companies, have it in their plans to actually release this as a standard offering towards, later in the year. And now, of course, what's the use with just having us and Colt do this? Not really a lot. Both Colt and ourselves, we've got hundreds of Ethernet partners globally. So we need to get that extended. That's also why, and again, full agreement with what Juan Carlos was saying, why it's so important that we come to a level of standardization. At this event, we were working closely together with the MEF, and obviously we're very interested in ensuring that more of our operator partners start to move into this direction. Now, if I look at what have we, been doing over the last, over the last year, over the last 6 months, probably since the last Layer 1 to 3 conference, and what have we learned from our customers? Because one of the initial goals, which we always had in Verizon since 3 or 4 years ago, when we originally started out with virtualized networking services, we wanted to get our hands dirty. We wanted to learn from our customers. Now, one thing which is clearly for sure is at the time of doing presentations and talking about the all of the advantages of some of these virtualized networking services, those are gone. Customers have fully bought into the concepts of zero touch, the deployment at speed, the ability to make changes, the ability to actually choose between different solutions and then have a level of control themselves. Now, what we are seeing is that throughout the implementations which we have done, we're probably seeing about 3 different kind of customer use cases popping up. So the first one are probably the more simple use cases. Now, as you can imagine, from a product team perspective, we are tracking quite closely some of these implementations. To nobody's surprise, the most popular implementations which we are seeing are combinations of security and virtualized security and SD-WAN. And so, not so long ago, we had about a month ago, we had a customer, who actually pushed through, an order for, as part of our OpenStack-based environment for a hosted network service for, a combination of an SD-WAN and virtualized security. Now, this was the first time that, not known to us, the product team, but where the account team had agreed quite some severe penalties, for not delivering, the service on time. Now, sometimes we do that in the past as well. In this time, the agreement was within 3 weeks. Our operations team got a little bit nervous about that. And I can tell you that as soon as your operations team gets a little bit nervous, that's when you're truly working on zero-touch provisioning. Now, we effectively delivered upon this. Obviously also because there was no change required to the underlying network, so we were just providing the overlay. But that's definitely one, customers who, they don't have the time, they want to move forward, they go for a relatively standard implementation and are really interested in our speed to deliver this. Now then, there's other customers. There's probably the customers who are more already more complex, who want to truly understand how this is going to be working. Now, what we saw, let's say last year, is that we saw many of these customers coming into our labs. And we were then doing proof of concepts with them. Also, that has changed. We see customers now saying, you know what, we want to try this in our own live network. Still in a little bit of a controlled environment, but on their own live network, not in a Verizon lab or in a customer lab. They want to see how we deploy these solutions, and then see what happens if something goes wrong. How quickly can we recover the VNFs? How quickly can we restart them? Can we look at individual VNF performances so that we can truly see the actual real life of how this solution is working. Now, all of that is great, and we actually had also recently a customer of ours who had done this with I think it was Cisco Viptela as the one solution, together with some security deployment and then some one optimization as well. And the trial went well, in their live environment. Challenge was, and we were really moving forward. The account team was planning on, let's start planning the rollout, because that's what we want to do. And then the customer changed their mind, and they said, well, maybe your Versa solution would be better for us. We've got some smaller sites and tighter integration with security. And then you're standing there and thinking, we've just done a proof of concept. Now, imagine if we would have done this a few years ago without the ecosystem which we put together, we would have had to start from scratch. Now, do we like this? Not necessarily, but we have the environment. So we were able to effectively, deploy, the new VNFs on the equipments which we already had had installed. So on the one way it does help us. On the other way, it does show a danger. The danger of science projects. Depending upon who in a customer environment you're talking to, they may be extremely interested in testing all kinds of stuff. And so that's a balance we need to look at. And then there's the third kind of customers. These are our high-end, global, very complex, customers who truly run, global networks, have very specific requirements. They're really going to, co-development together with us, co-creation. So these are the ones who come to us and say, I need certain service chains you haven't productized yet, and we spend, in between brackets, still far too much time on standardizing that. Lack of standards is definitely a challenge there. But hey, that's the reality for now. But that actually means that those customer requirements are driving our development. But it goes further than that. We had a large German customer come to us, and they were looking for a very specific VNF. And the vendor of that VNF actually hadn't announced support for OpenStack, which we are basing our solutions on, so we were kind of stuck. Now, by working together with the customer and ourselves, and then of course working with the vendor, we were able to convince that vendor to start to announce support for OpenStack, so that we can actually move forward, to truly get to a win-win situation. And then, of course, it's these same customers who then, want to have the discussion with us around bringing their own VNFs. They've got a number of them. They want to install all of that themselves. So all of that is happening today. Customers are trialing this out, testing it in their own environment, and for them it's no longer good enough to talk about carrier automation or zero-touch provisioning. They want to see how this is happening in real life, and that's a picture of that, real life. Because we've seen the previous pictures and they all look nice, all nice diagrams and arrows going left, right, and center. Here's a retail customer who came to us in the October-November timeframe, needed a few sites up and running quickly, We installed a Verizon white box, OpenStack based. This is one of the Dell white boxes. So if you look really closely, you can actually see the white box humming happily along just behind the vacuum cleaner. Yeah? And that's the reality. You know, that is reality of zero-touch provisioning. You know, where customers do not have the space, don't have, you know, the people, don't have the time to actually spend on this, and really trying to make sure that we get this, you know, get this going. You know, that is, you know, is reality. That is, you know, what we in Verizon call, you know, getting our hands, you know, dirty. And then, you know, maybe a final thought. So I really like this quote here from George Westerman. You know, when digital transformation is done right, it's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. But then when done wrong, all you have is a really fast caterpillar. So I think there's a message in there for us as an operator and, you know, for all of our partners as well. From an operator perspective, you know, although we talk about digital transformation, you know, we still sometimes are held back by what we deem to be, you know, this is what we've launched, this is what we have decided for you, our customer. I think, you know, this concept of co-creation, working together with our customers is absolutely important. Not so long ago, we were having one of these internal debates within Verizon around, you know, a deal which got sold, and our operation teams were saying, you know what, why are we selling, you know, these custom deals? You know, what you've just sold, you know, we haven't launched that yet. It's not officially standard yet. And, you know, my VP basically said, you know, maybe this is true. Maybe it is not standard yet. And maybe it is a custom deal. But we should remember that every custom deal is effectively a customer requirement. And we should make sure that our product development roadmap starts to reflect that. Now, in order to do that, we need help, and I think what Juan Carlos said is absolutely correct. You know, we spend a lot of time today in trying to fulfill our you know, customer requirements. Some of the challenges we have, I've already mentioned, you know, getting VNFs onboarded. You know, lack of standards takes us too long. You know, customers are coming to us saying, I want this, I want that. Now, I told you about the co-creation and the good work we had with one of our partners, but, you know, we have an agreement, everybody is saying, yes, we'll do it. Still take us probably anywhere between 4 and 6 months before it is something we can use. This is not the timelines our customers are expecting. Licensing is another typical example. We bump into all kinds of interesting licensing issues. The most basic ones are the fact that you know, many of our partners continue to sell us licenses which are too broad. If you sell something which is this big, the customer only wants this. The customer will only want to pay for this. You will still give him this. It doesn't help us. You know, we should start small and grow. And the final part is definitely the service chains. Same problem as with VNFs. It takes us too long. Customers are coming to us and they want all kinds of combinations. The trouble with the stage of the industry we're in at today, there is indeed not necessarily enough volume. So you will have all kinds of customers asking for combinations which you're only seeing for the first time. If that takes us too long, you know, customers will lose faith in the ability to deliver that. So we focus a lot on that. We have, you know, relatively big UATs happening to support that. But you know, that's definitely something where I believe all of us in the industry can work together on to truly, you know, help us to help our customers to become, you know, real-time enterprises. And that's what I wanted to share with you, giving you a little bit of a view on, you know, this is where we currently are. This is what we're hearing and seeing from, you know, from our customers as we start to implement these solutions in real life environments. And with that, probably hand it back to you, Mark.
We have time for maybe just one question. If there is one, let's take a question here. By the way, I love the fact that your white box really was white. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. That was one of the design principles.
Yeah, thank you very much for a very interesting speech. I have a question regarding the business side when you do cross-carrier automation. Like, I mean, it works now. So you have two companies that through a common interface can provision on each other's side the resources. Yeah. But how do you handle, for example, service level agreements or end-to-end service level agreements? So what is the business agreements between these two companies, and how do you handle failures in these situations?
No, I think that's a great question. Now again, so what we've demonstrated here was technical proof of concept. We are still working out some of these details. There are the SLA details. For example, what happens if that API something still goes wrong, and the customer is expecting a change within 10 minutes, and we then need an IT team to look at this. And they need 4 hours. You have a big disconnect. So these are, and we haven't finalized on that yet completely between us and Colt. Those elements, together with other stuff like billing, some contractual agreements, are all being worked out, and we have an aim to truly finalize that towards the middle of this year. So that is really, from our perspective, still work in progress.
Okay, great. Well, I'll draw that to a close then, because we are out of time. Thank you again, Peter.